Detroit is tightening a quiet plan, and the move they're teeing up isn't about headlines. It's about January football and fixing one specific lever in the coverage machine without touching everything else. Welcome back to Lions News Fan Report. I'm bringing you exactly what matters and nothing that doesn't. I've got an inside-out look at why the front office is poking at the cornerback market again, what kind of profile fits Aaron Glenn's man-match demands without breaking the budget, how the contract math can be shaped to protect future extensions, and the one name that checks all the boxes if Detroit decides to push the button. Before I spell it out, here's the promise. By the end, you'll understand the logic, the role, the cost, and the risk. So when the phone buzzes on deadline week, you already know whether this is smart team building or just noise. Let's build the case the way this team actually operates. Step by step, no drama needed. Detroit's identity on defense starts with leverage and communication. Reroute the route stem, win the top of the break, plaster on second reaction, and make quarterbacks hold the ball long enough for the rush to get home. It works best when the nickel is disciplined and the outside corners can play through the receiver's chest without drawing flags. But injuries, snap counts, and matchup-specific packages have stretched the DB rotation thin at times, forcing Detroit to ask role players to be role shifters. And that's where micro-inefficiencies creep in. A missed handoff on a switch release here, a late squeeze on an overroute there, small moments that become third down conversions. Brad Holmes doesn't chase splash for the sake of it. He looks for marginal edges that stabilize the whole structure. Think measured, value-balanced, locker room fit first. That's why the search focuses on a corner with short area quickness, reliable mirror in the slot, inside-out versatility in emergency, and contract flexibility that won't eat future cap reserved for your core. Schematically, Aaron Glenn's playbook demands a nickel who can survive on an island against option routes, carry verticals without panic, and tackle well enough to make the offense hate throwing underneath on second and medium. That player also needs to understand how Detroit green dogs and exchanges gaps so he doesn't open a seam when the front simulates pressure. It's not about a name, it's about fits, hips, eyes, leverage, and calm. The market for that kind of player is usually expensive unless you target an expiring deal on a roster that's retooling. That's where the timeline matters. As the deadline approaches, some teams pivot to auction mode. Others quietly take calls to reset the room and recoup picks. Detroit can operate in that space by aiming at a contract year corner who's played heavy snaps in the slot, doesn't need a red shirt, and won't force the staff to redraw third down menus. The trade structure that makes sense is the familiar one. Day 3 capital, modest conditions attached to playing time or postseason advancement, and no guarantees beyond this year unless the tape earns it. Low volatility, high utility. Slot play in this system is unforgiving. You're often the conflict defender on RPOs, the hot targets shadow in quick game, the emergency safety valve on scramble drills. The wrong fit creates ripple effects. Safeties get nosy and give up posts, linebackers widen and open the B gap, pass rushers lose that extra half second. The right fit does the opposite, compresses windows, buys time, lets the rush breathe. And that brings me to the profile I've been building toward. Compact frame, sticky mirror, fearless at the catch point, calm feet in the alley, experience in heavy usage slot duty, and a contract in its final season that can be extended only if Detroit chooses. The reveal you've been waiting for is simple and targeted. Roger McCreary. Inside the league, he's known for short area twitch and competitive toughness. He's lived in the nickel world where option routes punish hesitation, and he's learned the angles that turn immediate yak into 5-yard grudges. On tape, you see a corner who understands leverage pre-snap, plays through hands at the catch, and rarely panics when he's out of phase. He isn't a size outlier you drop on a boundary alpha every snap, but as an inside specialist who can moonlight outside in a pinch, he's exactly the glue piece Detroit can deploy without rewriting the defense or the cap table. That's the hook. He stabilizes the rotation, protects the call sheet, and makes life easier for everyone from Brian Branch to the back-end safeties who can keep their landmarks instead of babysitting underneath. Now, let's hit the 4 pillars: role, cost, impact, and risk. Role. He slots into nickel packages immediately with matchup flexibility against shifty slots, big slots, and backs detached out wide. In Detroit's 3rd and 5 world, that's not a sub job. It's a starter's workload in the most important downs of the game. Cost. This is not a first or second round pick conversation. You build it around a conditional day 3 selection that scales with snaps or playoff wins, protecting down the road wiggle room for internal paydays. Impact. Expect cleaner exchanges on bunch and stack releases, more confidence to heat the passer because the underneath isn't bleeding, and better third down math that flips field position over a full game. Risk? He's a slot-first player, which means you're not solving outside depth with this move, and you're betting on quick assimilation to Detroit's communication standards. But the downside is capped by the contract structure. If it doesn't click, you didn't mortgage anything. One thing I love on film is how McCreary processes layered concepts. Dagger, drive, mesh variations. He feels the rub, slides under without losing contact, then arrives with timing that disrupts quarterback rhythm. He'll give you the tough tackle in space that shortens drives, not with highlight reel thumps, but with repeatable technique. Head across, wrap, and roll. In the red zone, he understands condensed splits and how to take away inside leverage without conceding the fade, which lets the safety play more aggressively on crossers. That's the subtle math that shows up when you're trying to beat playoff teams in January. And there's the cultural piece that matters in Detroit's building. Accountability, work habits, taking hard coaching. The staff doesn't coddle, it teaches and expects you to answer on Sunday. McCreary's reputation around the league is a pro who shows up and competes. When you're trying to maintain a top-tier locker room built on Aiden Hutchinson's relentless standard and a head coach who preaches strain, that fit matters as much as tape. For those worried about overlap with Brian Branch, remember, chess, not checkers. Branch can still be your movable star. Robber looks, pressure packages, Robert and nickel rotations. Adding a true slot technician lets Aaron Glenn diversify disguise and reduce predictable tells. Offenses that tried to ISO Detroit's next man up in the slot won't get that free release anymore. The pass rush, in turn, benefits from an extra hitch from the quarterback, and everything feels more like Lions football. On contract architecture, the discipline is straightforward. Rent the player now, reserve the right to buy later. If the on-field value matches the room value, you explore a short extension at a price that fits the corner hierarchy. If not, you let the comp pick formula do its quiet work and move on. That's how contenders stay flexible while still pressing edges. This isn't a splash for billboards, it's a carefully aimed fix. And that's why it feels very Detroit. If you've been riding with this channel, you know I don't gas up rumors for clicks. I look for operational logic, and this one has it. Need meets availability, meets scheme, meets cost. Drop your take below right now. Would you greenlight a conditional day 3 swing for a slot-first corner if it tightens third down and keeps the rush on schedule? Or would you hold your chips for a bigger outside move later? Your read matters because this community has nailed the vibe of Holmes' moves more than once. Here's where I land after weighing it. As a deadline window adjustment, Roger McCreary gives Detroit a clean, pragmatic upgrade at the exact stress point that playoff offenses love to attack. He won't change the banner outside the stadium, but he changes the math on third and medium. And January is one on math. If the price stays in the lane we've outlined and the medicals align, I'd make the call. That's my board. Tell me yours. And hey, if you value clear, fast, and honest breakdowns that put you in the room where decisions make sense, hit subscribe and tap the bell. This channel will keep you ahead of the noise with the details that actually win games in Detroit.